welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, India's only daily television platform for small businesses. Over the past 7 years, we've understood what matters most to you, the entrepreneur. And in year 8, we're taking head-on two of your most pressing concerns, that of funding and mentoring. I'm Sunanda Jayaseelan on the show tonight, an education and learning special with two companies, two influencers. First up is Upgrad. On the other side of a break is Classplus. Now, Upgrad has perhaps achieved what a lot of its peers have not managed to, and that's scale, having on board marquee investors. I caught up with the company to understand what really the new normal is looking like in this post-COVID world when it comes to the learning and education space, as well as their own expansion plans, and a little bit of a deep dive when it comes to really what they feel are going to be the big opportunities for entrepreneurs in this fiscal. Take a listen. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here on the Leaders of Tomorrow, Mayank. We're, of course, talking about what India Inc. is doing and what it needs to do if it's going to come back onto the fast track as far as revival is concerned. My first question to you, and we've had you on the show previously, but if you can really talk about how the online education space is changing and changing rapidly as we speak, and what you as a company, what you at Upgrad, what space you're really playing in.
If you look at from a business perspective, there's a very strong uptake in demand that we are seeing, Sunanda. I think people are now far more open to taking up online programs. They're far more open to experiencing learning online. The credibility has gone up, adoption has gone up, and very, very importantly, people have started believing in the efficacy of the medium also. So what we are seeing right now from a demand perspective, we are up by about 70% to 80% to what it was earlier. We are also seeing that a lot of people want to start learning something because at home your travel times have gone down, your entire sort of the entire time that it takes in commute, finding meeting, etc. is completely cut out. So a lot of people are spending time and energy into learning a new skill. So we are seeing an uptick in demand. I think one of the things that people are still a bit wary of is to figuring out whether in the online education space, are they ready to commit to a certain amount of money now or hold on for that for later. So I think that's the question mark that people are keeping, given the uncertainty in the environment right now.
Okay. Sitting, of course, where we are, coming perhaps off the worst that we've seen as far as COVID-19 is concerned, looking forward to the rest of the year, seeing how businesses like yours, startups like yours, those in the education space, those in other industries are really responding to what is happening around us. My question to you is, any sort of trends, any areas, any segments within the education space that you think are going to now rapidly grow as we go forward into the rest of the year and into 2021, responding to the fact that more and more people now are, of course, getting comfortable with the whole notion of online education, particularly in the primary areas. It's not something that you operate in, but I'm just trying to get a sense of where are the big opportunities. Sitting where you are, where do you see those opportunities?
No, I think it's a very good point because, as you rightly said, that a lot of things have shifted, a lot of sort of positive movement has happened. From where we see, from an opportunity perspective, I think I would break it down into three different segments. You have the entire primary and the school age group population. A lot of those folks, I mean, you are noticing either in your family or your nephews or nieces, they're all now studying online from home. So the fact that anyone has to go in to a school is now slowly people are realizing it can happen while being at home as well. So I think primary and the K through 12 space is going to see a huge change, not just from a supplemental material perspective, but also from a learning efficacy perspective. So that's one segment, which is the school age group population. I think preschool and primary and pre-primary area where people are under the kindergarten space, they are still not that open to online. So I think it is going to take some time in the online space, but the entire 1 to 5, 1 to 8 class age group, I think online will become a far more a must do rather than a good to do thing. We also, the second segment where I see there is going to be a pockets of demand that will spurt is this test prep piece. I think all of us are following what's happening in Kota, where governments are sending the buses to bring back the learners back into their own sort of location. Uh, a lot of that offline coaching is going to die down, at least for the period. And I think the period is not going to go away till we find a cure with vaccine. So test preparation, where people are preparing for bank POs or IIT JEE prep or CAT prep, etc., is going to see a shooting up of demand. The third segment in our mind would be the working professional and the professional learning space, where again a lot of people are now being at home, having the time and energy, and thinking about that. Look, now this is the time for them to upskill. Otherwise, there's always that excuse that, oh, I can wait it longer because there's no urgency. Now, when the situation is dire and people are looking at serious sort of business changes, I think there's a far more acceptability in the minds of professionals. Why don't I invest in myself? We are seeing a significant uptake in people coming in from various walks of life, looking at an online program. So between school age group, test prep, and working professional, I do see significant changes and adoption of online going up quite tremendously.
Okay. Have you studied the size of the opportunity, Mayank? Can you sort of put a figure on that? Anything you can talk to us about?
I think if I look at the school age group of population, I mean, in India, we have about 300 million people who are in the school age group population, but about 270 million are already in schools. So our participation ratio is higher. Of that 270 million, if I just look at the private sector and tier A, tier B city, I think the side where bandwidth and online space is going to be quite relevant. I do see a 100 million plus opportunity size in that K through 12 space itself. If I include tier 2, tier 3 cities, that number can go up to 150 to 170, 180 million people who would get access to, and who would be open to the online education space. So that is going to be the largest from a numbers perspective. The test prep market, I think my estimate would be anywhere in the zone of roughly saying at a low of 10 odd million to 20 odd million. So it will be in the zone of 10 to 20 million people who will, what that size of the test prep ecosystem would be. While on the professional education space, between the white collar jobs and the college age group population, there's a scale of about 70 to 80 or 70 to 100 million people in that zone itself. So I think primary school age group is going to be the largest, followed by the working professional, and then followed by test prep. But the ARPUs and the ticket size will be much higher for the working professional, then followed by test prep, then followed by the K through 12 space.
So what time frame are we talking about for these numbers?
I think my sense is, I think that's the number that is existing right now. My sense is that penetration across all these numbers. See, I'm an eternal optimist. So my take would be that these numbers will happen much faster than whatever that we have predicted. I think all the predictions that anyone has done over a period of time, specifically in the education space, are going to get crushed completely because I can imagine what 6 months from now will look like. And in that zone, I think online education will behave exactly like a mobile phone. Everyone must have it, they must be using it, they must have access to it. And I'm not saying because I'm from the sector, I'm more so saying that there is no other better alternative that we have in the current context. So I do see the next 1 year to be a hockey stick curve for the online education space. It is an inflection moment, but the inflection moment will become a business opportunity only when entrepreneurs on the other side actually go ahead and capture the market much faster.
Okay, maybe I can squeeze in two last questions before we let you go. You're talking about the hockey stick kind of opportunity that's going to exist over the next year. But what are the challenges and how can they be fixed? One, of course, that I see is internet connectivity, particularly in tier 3 and tier 4 towns. And speaking of tier 3 and tier 4, I would assume that vernacular is something that's going to be a big market in these areas. But for testing, for higher education, etc., are these verticals, industry segments responding fast enough in your mind, in your opinion, to the opportunities that now are going to increasingly come up?
No, I think you are very, and the point that you're making is quite relevant. That look, I mean, we can all talk about till cows come home that online education is the next big thing, but till we have sorted out a whole lot of basic issues, things will not happen. So if I have to put down three big ticket problem areas which will hold back on acceptability and adoption, I think bandwidth for sure will be amongst the top ones, because we are not talking about just tier one India or premium Indian segment. We are talking about mass India, where bandwidth still remains a problem. I do expect, given the work that we are doing in terms of 5G and Reliance Jio's push towards getting adoption of 4G over a period of time, it will get solved, but it will, in the short run, remain a challenge. Two, I believe, to your question, the resistance coming in from universities and resistance coming in from corporates and schools. I think the larger ecosystem of physical infrastructure-based entities, companies, universities, and schools will try to push it out as much, because for them it's a threat to the existing business model that is existing there. And I think the third one is going to be on outcomes. People will always question whether, look, it's okay, I'm now forced to learn online, so I will learn online. But will I really get the same kind of learning as what I was getting in the physical and offline setup? The question marks will be there for the near-term future. So between bandwidth, acceptability, and belief in the efficacy would be the three big reasons why I believe will push back the adoption of online education.
All right. My last question to you then, a very brief one. What role is the government going to play increasingly when it comes to the education space? And we're talking about, all different verticals of the education space, Mayank. What is going to be the role of the government, even as industry, startups, entrepreneurs like yourself are responding to the opportunities and the challenges? What more would you like to see from the government?
Sure. So to me, it depends upon different segments, but very quick pointers. One, acceptability and credibility of online programs. So government has now come up with allowing of online degrees, which was not the case earlier. So I think that is going to get very rapidly accelerated. And two, if government can create a task force wherein the overall ecosystem of the physical infrastructure, which is school, universities, and corporates, if we can rally them together to believe in the efficacy of online education, because as a country today, we cannot rely on physical infrastructure to deliver education. We have a huge task at our hand, and online has to be the way forward as we go along.
All right, Mayank, good as always having you here on the show. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Sunanda. Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Time for a quick break. Much more on the other side. Our second influencer tonight is Classplus. That conversation when we come back. Just stay tuned. Welcome back with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight our second influencer is Classplus. I got up with Mukul Rustagi of Classplus to understand really the role of vernacular when it comes to the entire learning model, no matter whether it's at the primary level or it is higher education or even testing, how the market is changing, the role of technology, why is it changing so much, and how entrepreneurs can make best use of all the changes that we're seeing now in the space that has been impacted by COVID, what those opportunities are, all of that in this conversation. Take a listen. You've got a head start, if I can call it that, compared to a lot of people who are now increasingly realizing that education, no matter at what level, is increasingly moving online, particularly because of everything that we're seeing happening around us. My question to you, Mukul, how are you, the changed environment that we're in? What are the biggest changes that you're seeing will take place when it comes to the education space, whether it's primary, middle, higher? What are those big changes?
I still think we're very, very early in defining how the long-term changes would be, because nobody knew how this, nobody ever imagined this to start, and nobody definitely knows how this will pan out in the future. So it's a little jittery area. But that being said, whether you look at any segment of edtech, whether it be kids learning, or it be adult education, or it be life tutoring, or let it be the uh, content consumptions, or any kind of education that is happening, there's been a common tailwind that is happening across every segment, and which is the comfort and the adaptability of students or teachers or parents to adopt to a learning experience which is powered by digital in a major way, which probably would not have been so mainstream. And like, you can call it a mindset shift, or you can call it the need of the hour, or you can call it for a temporary solution. We don't know what it is, but there is for sure a greater adoption, and I think that did not happen before. I think whatever change happens, this will be the core of it, and it is very segment agnostic.
Okay, that being said, what support would you like to see from the government? Because at this point, it's also about how much of the regulatory framework is able to match the kind of changes that companies like yourself are making and are seeing.
I think the government has been they've been superbly responsive of tackling everything that has come in so far, and they've been very timely. How do we say it? Like, they've been very timely initiatives on
Sure.
steering the education, and I'm pretty sure like everybody understands the scale of education in this country, and I'm pretty sure it would be a priority for policymakers in themselves. I'm not definitely the right guy to comment, because I'd have much lesser knowledge about the entire place as senior people would have. But I'm pretty sure they'd take the right initiatives.
Okay. So, as someone who's in the online education space, I want to break this up into a two-part answer. First is, what are the biggest opportunities, the way you see it, being in the online education space? And the second, of course, as someone who's in this space, if you can talk about one or two challenges, maybe something you wish you had known previously, and use that to really talk about learnings that you've had in this space for someone watching this interview.
So I think there are tons of opportunities in this space right now, and like, education is one of those areas which have been a focus for Indian families. Like, it's not a new age fad. It's traditionally education is very deep rooted in how we're brought up, on how we see our careers. Like, education is the primary. It is one of the top expenses of any family from any income strata in the country. And people realize that the path to success in this country is through education. So I think this is one of those segments where like, the world might slow down a bit, but nobody wants to lose out on educating themselves or their kids or anybody else for that matter. So I think there are huge opportunities in let's say, how do you solve for the access issue, because a lot of people might not be able to access content right now. There are tons of opportunities around solving the cost issue, where like, you can, like, whether you do it micro courses or whether it's a low scale price point. Those are big opportunities. Then there's definitely an opportunities enabling teachers, which we believe fundamentally that these are the flag bearers of education, and like hundreds of thousands of students actually depend on teachers in this country. Like, they are the primary source of learning. So enabling teachers is in itself a massive opportunity. And then if you look at the adult education space, right from colleges to universities to skill enhancing programs, uh, which might not be immediately open in the short term physically. Now, to bring that entire learning experience online for the students without losing out on the essence of a classroom or the peer competitive advantage. I think I can go on and on and on, but these are just some of the few opportunities that I see in the market. We wish we could have known but that's just a wish. I don't think anybody could have imagined the uh, like, gravity, stature, impact, and the mindsets. We could have obviously taken. Everyone had taken a preemptive bet, but I don't think it was really possible for anybody to imagine this scale. This is unprecedented. I think, yeah, anything
Absolutely.
that we could have done to build our business prior to this better, it would have given us a head start. Probably that's the only thing I could have wished for.
Sure. So as more and more, of course, of the education and the learning is really moving online, have you raised funds your advice really for someone perhaps who's looking at raising funds, if you've had conversations with your peers, conversations with VCs or Ps, etc., who can therefore give some direction to anyone who's possibly in the fundraising stage at this point, possibly looking at expanding, what would you have to say?
Yeah, so at Classplus, we've raised a couple of rounds before. Raised raised round led by Times Internet around a year back. Recently, we saw a round happening which was led by Sequoia Capital India's Surge program and Bloom Ventures, and so yeah, and there's something more that will happen sooner or later. Like we'll still yet to go out in the public.
Sure.
But I think fundraising is not something that you do just to benchmark yourself against anybody else. Like that's the last view I would ever have about fundraising. It's so neither the timing nor the quantum is a direct function of only what the industry or let's say your peers would have been doing. So I think it's very necessary for people to understand that is this the right time to raise capital? What's the right quantum to raise capital? And I think I'm a firm believer personally that partners matter more than capital.
Sure.
Like I'd happily take lesser capital at probably a lesser valuation from somebody who I really want to build the business with, because it's a 10-year long journey. And so I think that fundamental advice is very critical from what we have experienced so far in our journey. I think partners matter more than capital. And in other aspects, I think it's just about whether somebody should do it right now or not. If one thinks that they need to. So I think it's very personalized and very subjective rather than being objective in nature. But the first principles are very simple, at least for me. I think it are.
All right, lovely talking to you here on the show. All the very best. And we'll circle back in the next couple of months to check back on the changes that have been taking place both in the company and the industry. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Out of time on this episode. If you have any feedback for us, as always, we love hearing from you, the viewer. Our contact details are on your screens. Do get in touch. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.